So I just want to bring council up an update on the project. So we got a few things to bring to light here. I guess we've been in conversation with DTI on the Centennial Bridge, the closures upcoming for the summer, and we've been advised that they plan to do closures in starting mid-August and September. Given that we don't want to overlap the work on King George Highway and the Centennial Bridge, it gives us a window of June, July to do the work on King George Highway. So, it's not that far away. I guess we haven't had confirmation of our funding from MBDTI is another issue. So hopefully they do an announcement here in the next few weeks. We want to issue a tender next week. We don't want to wait too long here. Work's filling up with contractors. They're all busy. So we want to get going on that. So I just want to make council aware of those two initiatives. The other thing is, in order to do this work, we need to install a detour. We feel this is the best way to do it. So the detour will involve eastbound traffic come from Newcastle heading towards Douglastown. We'll stay on King George Highway, so that gives us enough room to move them back and forth to get the work done. The westbound traffic come from Douglastown heading towards Newcastle. We'll have to detour up around Cove Road, Old King George Highway, Lawler Lane, and Railway, and then come back down Newcastle Boulevard. We have another meeting this week with our consultants. We are looking at some possibilities of temporary lights on Newcastle Boulevard because that intersection of Railway and Newcastle Boulevard will be busy. So some temporary lights may create some openings so traffic can flow pretty good. So the work is going to take about 8 weeks. So given that, we're preparing tender and going to get it out here in the next little bit. So I guess, does anybody have any questions or anything or comments or? Feel free to answer them for you.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Your Worship. Darren, did the government give you any time limit on money? You're talking to them about it or what?
Oh.
So through the chair to Councillor King, hopefully in the next few weeks we will get an update. It's that's what we're hoping for.
If I could just clarify on
Sure.
that, Councillor King, of course, the funding request is through the Designated Highways Program, which will be part of the provincial government's capital budget, which I've been told will be presented publicly in 2 to 3 weeks. So this will work for us in the sense that, I'm hopeful and optimistic that the funding will be there, and we have, we consider this a bridge mitigation project, and we've been working with the provincial government to do everything we can to mitigate those closures, and in fact coordinating the timelines is part of those efforts too. So point being is that if Director Rao issues the tender now, as he's mentioning he will, by the time the tenders come back to award the work, we will know if we've secured the funding or not, and we can plan accordingly at that time. Councillor Duplessis.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the closure and the detour, would the detour be in place the full 8 weeks, or will we see kind of, like, will that, yeah, I guess that's the simple question.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Duplessis, at the minimum, it will be 6 weeks. So hopefully the maximum is 8 weeks. It could be longer if we get into some unforeseen circumstances, but we do want to keep it as minimal as possible. But there is a lot of work there to do. So, yeah, best case, we're hoping for the best case. So,
Follow up on that. Obviously, we've done, we know the traffic counts. Obviously, anecdotally, we know it's super busy, and that's why we're doing a lot of this work. Do we have concerns with that, the detour and the extra traffic on those roads? And I know you mentioned lights and stuff, but dig into that a little bit more.
just to follow up to Councillor Duplessis, we've looked at it. One good thing, we had success there, 2 years ago with the detour around downtown when we did the intersection of Newcastle Boulevard and King George Highway. So, and we feel that, that one was even, I guess, probably almost more congested. The streets are smaller. We looked at the streets; they're all in good shape. They've all been upgraded. Railway, Lawler, they've been paved, and the Old King George Highway is a wide street. So, yeah, it's going to be increased traffic that people aren't used to, but that happens in construction. There's detours, and we feel that we're, with these measures, we're okay with it. Yep.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, a clarification question, if you will, for the director. Just in terms of budgetary issues, I know that the tender is going out now. And I want to just clarify for myself and perhaps an educational piece, learning moment for my colleagues in the public, if you will, that the King George Highway is a provincially designated highway, is it not? Correct? That's correct. Okay. So is the province, is the division of labor responsibilities, if you were, specific to the King George Highway divided in this way? Is the province responsible for the paving and the top work, if you will, and the municipality responsible for the infrastructure underneath, that is pipes and that sort of thing? Is that accurate?
So to Councillor Johnson, just to follow, I guess to go through it, there is a set criteria they use. So for these highways and all municipalities, the province, it's a formula they've come up with. The province hasn't, the province kind of has done various different scenarios, but essentially there's a cost sharing on eligible activities, and they include anything from curb line to curb line that's eligible, okay? And that does not include underground infrastructure such as water and sewer mains. They're strictly funded by us in the water and sewer fund. They do fund storm sewer, that's in the curb to curb. They do not fund sidewalks. So for this project, we proposed that the city would contribute 25% for those eligible funds, and they would pay 75%. That is our offer. It's based on a formula the cities of, I guess, or municipalities of New Brunswick have come up with. They recommended for our size, we should be paying 25% of eligible funds. In the past, we've paid anywhere from, I think, 0 to 50% is in that range. So it depends on the government at the time and what the offer is. So, when we get our letter here in the next, hopefully, little while, either saying you're not getting any money or you're getting money, it can be any in that range. So we kind of evaluate it, and in the past, we've turned down work in the past because the contributions we felt were too high from the municipality. The council at the time turned work down, but most of the time, the contributions have been fairly in the 15 to 25% range. That it's good value for us. So given all that, that's why the split's 50-50, but doesn't really show a true reflection of what the costs are. So hopefully I answered your question there.
Yes, thank you. So I guess personally, I'll speak for myself, a 75-25 split, seeing that the King George Highway is a provincially designated highway and the thoroughfare from the Acadian Peninsula, Northern New Brunswick to the capital, I think for the city of Miramichi, that is a fair deal. And I'm hoping to echo the sentiments of the mayor that we do come out with a fair deal budgetary-wise with the provincial government. Just as a follow-up question in terms of contingency planning and emergency services or security, from an emergency services or security perspective, what is the contingency plan, or has that been given any thought moving forward before this traffic eruption during peak season occurs?
So to follow up to Councillor Johnson, so we will sit down with emergency services, both chiefs, fire and police, review our detour and try to alleviate any concerns. One good thing is the road is not closed in that area, so there's still access from heading eastbound. So yeah, you still access the site. So we're not as concerned, I guess, if it had been a full closure. When we get into full closures, we get into some major issues with that. But this one, that you can still access the areas, so we're pretty hopeful that there won't be too many issues. But we'll sit down with them in the next few months here. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because when it comes to the King George Highway and traffic flow in summertime, stitch in time does indeed save 9, especially when it comes to emergency preparedness. Thank you, Director. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Johnston. Maybe a question from the chair, Director Rao. Oops, couple. Just on the surface level, and thank you for the breakdown of the work in terms of like the below and above, the eligible portions, and then the parts that are ours, specifically the underground pipe work. But on the surface, I I know that this project is of value for a number of reasons, and one that we've been working towards in previous years. We've procured extra pieces of land to widen that part of the road. Maybe you could give us a quick overview of some of the surface work that's going to be done. And I believe, is this going to address the intersection with Old King George Highway as well? Just especially, you know, what are the surface components, and what of those specifically might help with the bridge mitigation traffic issues?
Sure, to your worship. So this is, the King George Highway. Several years ago, we come up with a cross-section for the full King George Highway through Newcastle. And that involves a lane each way, I guess a 3.5 meter lane each way, which is typical. And then a 1.5 meter shoulder on the side of those lanes for bike paths, or someone can pull over, so it's a little bit of both. And then there will be sidewalks on both sides through this area, curb and sidewalk. So really it addresses a lot of pedestrian safety in the area for people crossing in the area. We're also trying to tweak up that intersection, yes, at Old King George Highway. Fortunately, there's not much we can do with it just because of the property and the angle and different things, but we are working and trying to define that, tweaking that up a little bit, as you mentioned. So safety, I guess, for pedestrians and bicycle access, are two main issues, and then give traffic a little more room where, they have some wide aids and a shoulder. So all those issues are going to make it safer in that area.
Great. And now, a sort of second question, and similar but not totally related, is I know we've also put in our budget funding for a significant portion of the northern spine through our new active transportation plan to on the King George Highway this summer that will connect with widened shoulders and sidewalks and portions all the way through that road for cyclists and pedestrians to give them that access, which of course will help as well, hopefully diverting vehicle traffic in full bridge closure years, giving people the option to walk or bike in those areas. I know in terms of that work being planned for this summer as well, would you also be looking to align that work in June and July to also avoid the bridge partial closures, or would that work require lane closures? So I guess maybe just to speak to the connectivity of that project to this one and the bridge closure.
Yes, to your worships. Yes, so the shoulder windings we're talking about doing in the areas through Nordine and around the Cove, I guess there's some different areas there. Our intention is to line them up the same time in July. If there's complications or something like that, we will be working with the province. There's some openings, a week or two in the fall that we could squeeze in some work as well too. So it's not as long duration the work, but we are anticipating to try to do that at the same time, yes. And
do you anticipate that work will require any partial or full lane closures, or?
It only require like one lane closures for short durations, days or a week or two at a time is our anticipation. The work is not as intensive as this work, whereas we're replacing, underground pipes, so it takes a lot longer. So.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So I guess so then we should, in the short coming weeks, anticipate that tender getting issued as well.
100%. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And seeing nothing further from members of council on that item, this one, this is just to issue a tender, Mr. Manager, so no motions required there.